MVM has been a staple of the game for over a decade at this point, and let's be honest, we all know why. It's not the riveting or enticing gameplay, it's not the cheerful and well-mannered community, and it's certainly not the joy of waiting for Billy to locate his F4 key. At the end of the day, aren't we all golden retrievers? In the event that Valve comes home after 6 long years of being in the milk lineup, I actually think Man vs. Machine could be an ROI juggernaut. At least by any kind of direct, quantifiable metrics. More Aussies means more players means more tickets means more money. Simple as that. But it does beg the question of what weapon should become Australium in the first place. Some people may advocate for the biggest yellow brush imaginable, painting every weapon, no matter how belittled, with their own Australium flourish. And while I'm sympathetic to that line of thinking, I actually much prefer the rarity and limitability of this attribute. It captures more of a prestigious feel. It's also less work on Valve's end, and I'm sure that'd be great news to them. Airing out the criteria, I'm not gonna be too stingy. It's just a matter of not wanting to waste each class's golden opportunity. Weapons that are iconic, practical in game, look good when redesigned, or preferably all three, will be heavily favored. The former two categories will be largely based around community sentiment, while the latter will be my own personal taste based on whatever concept art I could get a hold of. I'll try to keep my biases out of the equation. Keyword, try. Will these picks ever manifest in game? Probably not, but we may as well have some fun in this dream world we've concocted for ourselves. So join me in figuring out which weapons should get chucked in the bargain bin, and which ones will forever bathe in the Midas light. Midas light. Dislight. This video was sponsored by Dislight, a turn-based mobile RPG set in a futuristic cyberpunk-themed universe, full of alluring mythologies, mysterious creatures, and stunning audio-video presentation. The world is centered around espers, heroes attuned with ancient divine powers, and it's your job to stand hand-in-hand with other players around the world to fight any evildoers who may oppose them. There are dozens of different espers to collect, as well as build your team around, and recently Dislight has launched 2 more, the twin sisters of Athena and Nyx. There is an exclusive, limited-time event in the making that will allow players to control the new character Athena and venture deep into the labyrinth-like world, learning the backstory of the twins and collecting in-game rewards along the way, including Nyx, a 5-star hero attainable at no charge. To download the game, use the link in the description below or scan the QR code on screen right now, and be sure to use the code Dusk and Dawn to receive massive rewards to aid you on your quest. And now, back to ours. To start this video off, let's go with the 2 most obvious choices that pretty much everyone can agree with. The shotgun and the pistol. I don't even think these ones need an explanation. Collectively, they're staples for 5 out of the 9 classes in the game and look really fucking clean with that golden glow. Hell, these ones are so prestigious that I'm down to make the pistol twice as rare as any other Aussie and the shotgun 4 times as rare. It'd be like a surprise within a surprise once you see that box animation go wild. A bit of an amplified feeling for what happens with the Eyelander drops today, which too have a lesser drop rate. They'd be much harder to come by as a result, but given their desirability, I think it makes sense. Switching over to Scout, I actually think we're fine on the scattergun front. Valve pretty much got both picks right on the first try. In the process, however, the entirety of Scout's secondary and melee arsenals got the middle finger, so it's time for some well-warranted retribution. Looking at the secondaries available, Scout doesn't have a pervasive stinker gameplay-wise, but in relation to the criteria, a couple of them fall a tad short. We already have an Australium pistol accounted for, so the Winger and Pocket Pistol would feel a tad redundant, and both the Criticola and Bonk Atomic Punch are small, rarely active weapons that would be a bit of a waste. So the choice is between the Guillotine and the Milk, and personally, I'm down for adding both. The Guillotine may not be as notable as it was back in its Sandman combo glory days, but it still sees frequent use as a long-range engagement tool. It doesn't hurt that the concept art is sexy as fuck. Enough to where I'd probably never use the blood texture to prevent muddying up the feel. The Milk, on the other hand, deserves it based on its meme status alone, though being one of, if not the best competitive secondary, doesn't lose it any points. As long as they keep the same debuff animation as usual, I don't see any drawbacks with the shift in coloration. You could argue it's no longer Milk at that point, but it never was. And even still, of all the rocket launchers to be made a different color, Valve went with the black box. I think we're gonna be okay. For Scouts Melees, the selection isn't as generous. The Sandman is without a doubt the most iconic, and pre-Jungle Inferno, I would have chosen it no contest. But we all know it'd be met with a one-way pipeline to the Steam marketplace for $12 at best. If the Bloodsauger is a disappointing drop by today's standards, the Sandman would be like finding out your only kid decided to be a YouTuber. We can also cross off the Sun on a Stick and the Fan o' War because barely anyone ever uses them, and while the Boston Basher is pretty good, it doesn't strike me as a weapon that looks suitable for a regal overhaul. Its more grungy aesthetic is kinda the appeal. So now we're narrowed down to the Candy Cane, the Rap Assassin, the Atomizer, and the stock bat. Personally, I think the choice here is obvious. Fish. Weapon reskins in TF2 have always seemed like a strange case to me, and for that reason, don't expect too many more getting a mention. But for the holy mackerel, I think we can all agree an exception should be made. You know, maybe giving Soldier 3 Australium primaries when most classes get 1 or 2 isn't all that fair, but my main, my list, fuck you. There are a lot of good candidates as pretty much every Soldier primary has its fans. Even the Black Sheep Liberty Launcher is changing shades over time, but we don't really have an Australium tied to any kind of alternative playstyle. And seeing as the Rocket Jumper is out of the picture in that regard, I say we give this newfound sheen to either the Beggar's Bazooka, the Airstrike, or the Direct Hit. I think we first have to cut the beggars though. While I love the idea of the dumpster diving weapon being candied in gold, it's just too much of an acquired taste to be regularly used. For reference, the beggars is probably my personal favorite weapon in all of MBM, but in casual, it ranks somewhere in the bottom 5. I definitely know that I'm not alone in that opinion. That's how polarizing this weapon is. So now it's a battle between the Airstrike and the Direct Hit, and in the end, I think the Airstrike has the tiny edge. Design-wise, I think the Airstrike looks, if not cooler, more unique, as the Direct Hit borrows the same color scheme from the stock rocket launcher, which already has a realized Aussie. You could also argue that the Airstrike sees more use among the entire bell curve of player skill than the Direct Hit does, so overall, I think it wins out in the end. Soldier's secondary pick is a much tougher call. We already have an Australium shotgun, so no need for any of the others. The gunboats and base jumper are non-lethal utility weapons and as a result can't have quantifiable kill counts. The man treads can, but it's the man treads. And the Righteous Bison would be the gold bar in a turd sandwich that would get no usage beyond a clickbait thumbnail. So that leads us to the obvious choice of picking one of the 3 banners, and I think the conch has the overall best qualities for a revamp. The concept of a seashell being plastered with gold, loosely evoking the Hidden Island treasure trope, is pretty cool, I think. But even ignoring that fact entirely, it takes 20% less damage to charge and has less of a situational gravitas to it. So on average, it'll see more play in game, exactly what we want out of a shiny utility. And for the melee, I could go down the list and evaluate them one by one, but there's no need to in this case. The Market Gardener is the obvious answer. I have no clue how this didn't make it as a Gen 1 Australium, especially considering this was at the height of the Frag era. Its notoriety pretty much speaks for itself. It looks the best, has the most offensive utility, and is the centerpiece of the Trollger playstyle. It still wouldn't get me to swap off my beloved escape plan, but I know for many others it would, and that's what counts here. Choosing a primary for Pyro was pretty tough. All of them have their fans, and despite the differences in playstyle, they're all pretty similar in terms of viability, at least in casual. This puts more of an emphasis on the appearance factor for becoming Australium, and in this category, the Dragon's Fury looks fucking awesome. All the other flamethrowers kinda necessitate going a bit overboard with the metallic plating. Personally, I'm not a fan, but the proportions on the Dragon's Fury are perfect for a redesign. Better than almost any other weapon in the game, I find. It'd also be really funny if this was the only way to get a Strange variant after over 5 years of being left in the dust. For the secondary, the obvious choice is one of the flare guns. Seeing as the shotguns are a redundancy, the jetpack would act as more of a glorified cosmetic, and the gas passer, it'd be funny. So this prompts the discussion of which flare gun should it be. The Scorch Shot's the most powerful of the bunch, the detonator has the most utility, and the Man Melter, exists, but honestly, I don't think we can top the normal flare gun. Sure, it's lost a bit of its utility ever since Puff and Sting got snuffed and flinged, but the icon status of the flare gun can't be understated. Honest to God, does anyone actually associate the shotgun as Pyro's actual stock secondary? No, it's the flare gun. And let's not look past that design. Yeah, this one's another easy shoo-in. For Pyro's melees, okay, I got nothing. The Dragon's Fury and the flare gun were easy picks, as they both excelled in several prominent areas relating to the criteria. But for Pyro's melees, it's almost painful how little synergy there is here. The Power Jack is probably the most popular melee choice in the current year, but simply reskinning the car battery portion would look fucking hideous. And it seems the modding community tends to agree with me on this one, because every piece of concept art given tries to lighten up everything but. An attempt I no doubt appreciate, but the design doesn't lend itself well to it. The next best choice would probably be the back scratcher, and maybe it's the blood splatter messing with the pristine feel of it all, but again, I'm just not a fan. What I can praise, however, are the Neon Annihilator, the stock Fire Axe, the Third Degree, and the Volcano Fragment. They all look fucking sick. Just a shame it'd be like adding a cup holder to a non-functioning parachute. Seriously, I've never seen a better argument to buff the Volcano Fragment than this image right here. The Homewrecker and the Maul are both weapons that fit the practicality and aesthetic standards, but they're also synonymous with a playstyle that the vast majority of the player base finds boring as shit. On a technical front, these ones might have the edge, but I just know they plummet to the lowest valued Australiums within weeks of launch. Funnily enough, there is actually one weapon that looks cool, is effective in game, and fun to use in casual play, and that's the Postal Pummeler. You know, the reskin of the weapon that already got in Australia. At this point, there's no really good option to choose from, so I say fuck the criteria and give it to the Lollychop. At least then we have another chance to get mega rich if there's another incident. Demo is the only class in the game to have been given 3 different Australiums on launch. Some may feel that's unfair, but it actually makes sense, seeing as 2 of them are centered around the standard Demoman playstyle, while the other one is the Islander, a sword relegated almost entirely to Demo Knight. Because he already got special treatment the first time around, we're only gonna give him 2 for this hypothetical update, both aiming to cover the Australium voided holes within the Demo's armaments, those being a melee weapon for the standard demo and a shield for the Demo Knight. For the melee selection, it's simply a choice between the stock bottle, the caber, and technically the pain train, but let's be honest, we all know that one's not the play. The caber at least looks visually appealing, but its lack of viability in its current state makes this one an easy win for the bottle. The shield discussion is where things get a bit more interesting, as I've seen skins for all 3 of them that all look pretty swag. Of the bunch, however, I think the Tide Turner looks the best. It has the perfect amount of subtlety, as opposed to the much more glaring gold dinner plate that the Splendid screen could likely come out as. And yeah, I know I talked about some Australiums being nothing more than glorified painted cosmetics, and while the Tide Turner is similar in that regard, I don't really mind. You ever try to make a painted, full-body loadout for the Demo Man, or especially Demo Knight? It's fucking impossible. The more help Demo can get on that front, I'm all for it. Like the scatterguns, I think Valve got Heavy's miniguns right on the first try. There was some criticism at the time, seeing as the Tommy Slab was in much more of a neutered state, and as a result, was one of the more cheaper Australiums, but ever since Gunmetal came in and buffed it into relevancy, the Australium variant followed suit. I remember when these things were 12 keys, and now they go for about as much as stock. In any case, that means we're once again turning our attention to the secondaries and melees. I don't really think I need to make a case for an Australium sandwich, do I? It got its own Meet the Team video and everything. You could argue it's the most iconic item in the game, and there'd be very few who would disagree. Hell, this one might warrant a lower drop rate among the shotgun and pistol, because we all know it would be the crown jewel of every Heavy main's collection. If scrap metal or wrapping paper doesn't impair the Heavy's digestive tracts, I don't see raw gold doing it for him either. Who knows, maybe he'll find himself in a Mr. Beast video for his efforts. But you know what else we need? An Australian banana. Yes, I am going down this road, shut up. The second banana might actually be more used than the sandwich at this point, and I say the lunchbox items are beloved enough to warrant a bit more special treatment. This has nothing to do with bolstering my own brand. trust me. The melee slot isn't so obvious, as it contains some of the least useful item selections in the game. The eviction notice is borderline unusable, the warrior spirit is a bit too niche, the stock fists provide almost no upside over anything else, and the guru, while still good and I'll die on that hill, disincentivizes keeping the weapon active. And if there's anything people like about Australiums, it's keeping them active. So that leaves us with 3 choices: the Holiday Punch, the Fists of Steel, and the Killer Gloves of Boxing. Personally, I'd be down with any of them, but as far as gameplay goes, I gotta give it to the Fists of Steel. They're almost ubiquitously viewed as the strongest heavy melee from a competitive standpoint, and on top of that, they have the inverse issue of the Guru, being incentivized to take them out rather than punished for it. And come on, look at them. For Engineer's primary pick, there's no competition here. Look at how fucking clean that Widowmaker is. The black and gold motif this thing has going on is phenomenal. As far as Australium redesigns go, it doesn't get much better than this. Yes, it's more of an offensive option in the same realm as the Frontier Justice and Stock Shoddy, both of which would have Australiums in this theoretical scenario. I understand from a gameplay point of view that the Rescue Ranger is the obvious choice. It would grant more playstyle variations access to an Australium, something that I fully support. But look at it. The Rescue Ranger is my favorite Engie weapon, and I'd immediately toss that shit in the dumpster like an unwanted child if it meant that this reskin got in the game. You want to teach people how to shoot? This thing would put every aim tracking site out of business overnight. There's no bias here. I don't like using the weapon, but it'd be a crime if an Australium update dropped and this one was kept benched. Any Australium after the Widowmaker is a tough act to follow, but if we're adding another wrench, it looks like Battle Engies are eating good. The Jag and the Southern Hospitality are too similar to stock for it to justify taking the Australium slot, and the Eureka effect, while unique, also has somewhat of an acquired taste akin to the Beggars. So an Australium Gunslinger is the pick, and I think the vast majority of people would probably agree. Given how integral it is to diversifying the Engineer's playstyle, this one is a no-brainer. And you know what? I say we add in a strange PDA too. I'm not even asking for golden buildings, though some of the concept art is really well conceptualized, others not so much. I mean, it'd be nice to see, and I wouldn't be against the idea, but I'm a simple person, and just a gold remodeling of the PDA is all I'd ask for. Would it be all that spectacular? No, but that hasn't stopped the regular Strange PDA from going over $100 in value. Maybe make this one more of a rare drop too. Engineer already has a small cast of weapons to work with, may as well make them shinier to compensate. Let's just hope the strange teleporter tracker kicking you out of the upgrade station is fixed before this is a possibility. Okay, let me level with you guys. Why the fuck did Valve choose the Bloodsauger over the crossbow for the Medic's only Australian primary? Maybe I'm misremembering history, but even back in 2013, the crossbow was infinitely more popular. I don't know, maybe an intern main battle medic and blackmailed them with embarrassing photos from the Christmas party? Who fucking knows? Point is, an Australian crossbow is long overdue, and I don't think that's a controversial statement. It's the best medic primary by a mile. No shot this thing would plummet to the depths of single-digit key value hell like the Bloodsauger. Valve's priorities for this one were weird. I say we fix it a decade later. And fuck it, if we're gonna have 2 medic primaries, it'd be weird to have their quantity outshine the mediguns. You'd think that this may be a tougher choice as all 3 mediguns have their fans, but the quick fix variant looks kinda mid, and all vaccinator medics need to be tied to the train tracks for the easiest trolley problem ever. So Kritzkrieg it is. It suits the criteria best. And for the medic's melee option, the Ubersaw is the clear frontrunner, and I do not like that. Medic's biggest problem as a class is that 2 out of his 3 weapons are basically decided right from the jump. At this point, the rest of his weapons are nothing but aesthetic icons, giving you some illusion of choice. So because medic mains don't have any option but to use this thing, I have no option but to give it the Aussie. On a personal level, I much prefer the design of the amputator and the theming of the solemn vow, but I can just imagine how bad the player outrage would be if the Ubersaw got shafted in favor of another melee. Can't say it'd be the same the other way around. Sniper has a lot of cool primaries that would be well suited for that golden glow. low. The upper hand looks sick, as does the Machina, and hell, even the classic looks incredibly badass. At least until you try to actually use it in-game. But I think you know the drill. The upper hand is a reskin of a weapon that already has an Australium, and the classic sucks doo-doo donkey balls, so the Machina is the obvious choice. Well, not really, because I think the Huntsman deserves it more. Look, the Machina is a dope-looking rifle, but at the end of the day, whether you're running it or stock, you're still doing the same shit. You already have an Australium alternative that covers 90% of your bases. The Luxman loyalists don't have that, and I think it's better that they do. There have been many takes on the concept, and I think all of them work fine, but the ubiquitous decision to keep the golden arrows is one I definitely approve of. It's like if Robin Hood stockpiled the goods for himself. For the secondary pick, most of Sniper's catalog is off the table. The Danger Shield and Cozy Camper can't be strange, and while that doesn't apply to the Razorback, it'd probably look ugly as shit. I think the modding community agrees with me at large because I couldn't find any concept art whatsoever. The Carbine is true to its name, looking clean as all hell, but it's got a redundancy problem with the stock SMG, so that kills it right out of the gate. So it looks like we're giving the golden power to the golden shower. Why is that in the script? At least it does check all the boxes of the aesthetics, icon status, and in-game effectiveness, so it's not a bad call. It's just a bit strange how we now have two bodily fluids being substituted for gold. And for the melee slot, you may assume that I'm going with the Bushwalker. And no, I'm not. It's a good weapon for sure, and in the context of Sniper getting the golden Girardi, it would work well. But it only has synergy with two, arguably three weapons in the Sniper's artillery. The stock Kukri is a much more well-rounded pick overall, and for that reason, I think it has the edge. And that edge looks pretty damn nice. For a new Australium revolver, I'm a bit torn actually. Typically, if there's only one Australium for a weapon category, it's usually the stock weapon, but given how popular the Ambi was at the time, Valve opted for that one instead. A good call, but definitely outdated given its current status. I think it's finally time we give the stock revolver its due, is what I would say if the big kill didn't exist. Weapon reskins in TF2 have always seemed like a strange case to me, and the big kill, it's a thing of beauty. I don't even have to look at any of the other options. This one is obviously the oh fuck, it's black and gold. Okay, if it hasn't been made abundantly clear, I have a type. And the Diamondback, it looks too good to leave on the cutting room floor. I know pretty much everyone thinks it's overpowered, a sentiment I very much agree with. But maybe I wouldn't mind seeing this on the kill cam every now and again. I believe this would be the first time in TF2 history where the stock weapon was ignored for the Aussie pick not once, but twice, and I do think that's unfortunate. The stock revolver doesn't even look bad, but come on. How could I say no? This is like every weeaboo spy's wet dream. And speaking of weeaboo spy's wet dreams, I think the obvious pick for the knife is the kunai. Aesthetically, all the knives are pretty similar, so we mostly have to lean on gameplay and icon status. In both realms, the kunai is top baguette. I've probably seen more professional killstreak Hailzone kunais than any other weapon in the game, so it wouldn't come as a shock to me if this one was a top charter in terms of price. And for the last class-specific Aussie I'd like to see added, why not the Sapper? I have yet to see any concept art that doesn't work exceedingly well, and if we can get away with the snack attack having the same stats, no way a golden recolor would be any more disconcerting. To me, this is an easy choice, much more than a third knife or revolver. And while we're at it, we may as well add in another exceptionally rare all-class melee as a supplement for the pan. Yet another process of elimination we need to indulge in. First, I say we cross off the Saxy because it's virtually indistinguishable from the original. Ditto with the Freedom Staff if you don't modify the branch, so I chuck this one as well. The Crossing Guard and Memory Maker are so forgettable that there's literally no Australium concept art that exists for them, which I think says a lot about the demand being non-existent. The Necro Smasher doesn't seem too bad in theory, but because I haven't found any redesigns that are all that appealing, it's gonna sit this one out too. And finally, I'm giving the Conscientious Objector a very big pass. This is 1 part terrible aesthetics and lack of concept art, 2 parts not wanting to give the server's most enthusiastic furry a beacon. It's bad enough already. So that leaves us with 3 choices: the Hamshank, the Bat Outta Hell, and the Prinny Machete. I'd be down for all 3, but I think the Golden Ham would be far more representative of TF2's art style and weapon theming that I don't really think it's a contest. If there's gonna be any weapon in the game that deserves a multi-$1,000 evaluation like the Pan, I think the Golden Ham is the most well well-suited addition. So there we go. That's every single Australium weapon that I would like to see added into the game. I want to give a huge shout out to the YouTube channel AT who recorded the vast majority of the Australium showcase demos. None of this was my doing, I just ripped it off of him. His channel is a fantastic repository for newly generated weapon concepts and reskin showcases. He does some pretty cool shit, so I'm gonna drop a link to his channel in the description. Bit more of a filler video, so I kind of apologize, but I hope you enjoyed nonetheless. If you did, dropping a like, sub, or comment would be very much appreciated. As always, thank you all for watching the video. Twitter and Discord are in the description, and that's all I got. See ya.